Hey guys and girls, PT Collectables back again with a Friday night TCG talk, and I'm joined by Sam, aka ChibiCollectables.
Hey, how you doing? What's up?
So we haven't done any of this for a while now. I think the last one was actually the Card Crunchers podcast, which was about 2 years ago now. So
Wow.
the hobby's changed a lot. You've changed a lot. Obviously, a lot of this conversation is going to be about the business that you've grown and expanded, and consignments is the first thing we'll talk about. So you are currently running. If is it the largest UK consignment company now?
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, to do with TCG, I'm the largest as far as I've been told by eBay and my numbers that I do. Obviously, nowhere near what the US people do, but I think last year on eBay, and April to April, we did like nearly $500,000 through eBay alone. I say a lot of that was
Yeah,
consignment, obviously working with some companies like Card House, some other people like yourself, and just through recommendations really. But yeah, currently still, as far as I'm aware, the largest TCG consigner, which has took a lot of time to kind of build up and get to this stage we're at now. I don't even know if 2 years ago when we last spoke, that was even something I was speaking about. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Had a lot of perks from it. It's done a lot for the business. Gave me a bit more extra capital. Put me in very good terms with eBay, doing shows with them and being first to do certain things and trial stuff. And there's a lot of extra perks that come with it. So it's been fun. It's been so fun. A little bit of hard work, a lot of learning curves along the way, but I think we're doing pretty well. I know at the minute there's a block that is ending at LCS on the Sunday, which is like a standard thing now for what we do. But it was currently up to like £24,000, and it's still got, what day are we on Wednesday? It's still got like half a week to go. So
yeah,
it's going to keep growing and keep growing. But yeah, everything's doing pretty well that side.
yeah. I think it wasn't something that we talked about before. Probably wasn't even an idea that you had back then. It was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
It's obviously, it's I've known you for a while now, so it's great to see every card show I come to. Your setup has got bigger. Obviously, you partner with eBay now, so seeing the eBay X Chibi Collectibles stands at the shows. Obviously, you were in the Netherlands on the weekend.
Yes.
Um, it's consignment is never really anything I kind of thought about in the UK because I didn't think it would ever get to that scale. As you
Mm,
said, in the US, it's massive. Like
yeah.
Z&G does massive consignments. We see the huge ones that he does.
Yes.
Obviously, the hobby in the UK and the US is completely different. But is there goals that you have now, like for the next 5 years, kind of what you want to hit?
Okay. There's a few different goals. Obviously, we'll go on to, but obviously eBay Live is starting up relatively soon with
Yeah,
eBay. Um, Obviously the US have had that for quite a while. So that was always a goal of why I put so much time and effort into building the eBay relationships up because I knew how strict and rigorous the process was to get onto that seller program to a degree to get onto eBay Live. It's not like, your whatnot where you have a few cards you can sign up. It's super
yeah,
easy. eBay Live, you have to be a business that registered, like done regular sales, and they even then they might say no. I know when we're starting off, there's maybe 10 sellers on the platform, so the idea is to build that and make that. Obviously, something I haven't really done too much. Obviously, VOT was a few years ago now, and that was
yeah,
short of a disaster. But the streaming aspect is something I never really took to scale. The business is never anything I've relied on, so it's a bit of a different turn for me. But like goal wise with the business, it'd be great to build eBay Live up to where I'm one of the biggest streamers on there, and it kind of adds to my portfolio of what I do
yeah.
within the business rather than just, I sell my high end, I go to shows and I do the consignment, but live is something I'm monetary wise missing out quite a lot on because it's just instant um like rotation of cash
Yeah.
and assets, and it's in and out, and it's very quick, and it gives you a bit more freedom to say to buy stuff, take a bit more of a risk on it because it's going to move in the next week, 2 weeks. So that's something that's kind of cool. I want to start working with some of the bigger US auction houses now. So Goldin, who obviously eBay own or acquired. I don't know how quite that works, but I'd like to be part of supplying them with 4 and 5 figure cards for their auction. Obviously, eBay auctions in the UK are fine, but as we all know, the tariffs have come in. US buyers a bit more wary to buy now because of the additional costs. So I think that's something I'm going to have to kind of utilize that connection, the golden eBay kind of connection, and kind of send my higher end there. Obviously, then allows US buyers to buy it, maybe takes away from the UK consignment side, but in my eyes, it stays in the same kind of basket because everyone owns eBay owns them all anyway. But really, just kind of build that up to a degree, get used to it. Obviously, supplying. I've got a streamer ready to go, supplying her with packs, singles. I'm going to be doing ace streams on there, which is just ace grading only, and bits and bobs, and it's kind of just a kind of a see how it goes, and hopefully something sticks and we get a good routine. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. Few months till that happens.
I think it's extremely impressive to begin with. I think for you to have created this business to this scale without lending too much into the social media side, because we know that pretty much every big name now in not just Pokemon but in collectibles in general, a lot of them are whatnot streamers. They have big social media platforms. They're constantly making content, YouTube streams and that. And that was always something that you really haven't heavily moved into. And I think you're probably one of the few that hasn't. So I think you've built up the platform and your name, your brand extremely naturally, which is very hard to do, I think, in this climate. So obviously, hopefully the eBay Live stuff goes well. I've heard quite a lot of people already saying that they hope that it succeeds because they don't want whatnot to basically keep going on. And it sounds like they're rigorous, testing and them ensuring that the people that they have on these platforms isn't just, Gary from down the road that's gone to his corner shop and bought a load of half boxes. It is actually people that have invested their time and money into the hobby, obviously, and growing their platform. So eBay Live, when does that actually go live for the public to kind of stuff?
So we'll be doing like a soft announcement, but just like referring to people about it at LCS this weekend coming. And then I think our big launch will be at Comic-Con in London, which is going to be really cool. We've got a load of giveaways planned. We're doing a big box break, which I won't reveal just yet because that'll be on my socials. Which I've sourced. You might have seen it if you follow my socials anyway. But we have a box break planned. I have a load of other things kind of planned with them. It's going to be a fun weekend. So that's kind of the kickoff of eBay Live. We've got a load of onboarding and stuff in the next couple of weeks to make sure it's like near enough a flawless start when we go. There's no problems, and it's going to be interesting. It's something that I've kind of, like you were saying, I've not really relied on socials pushing the business too much. Whether that's a benefit or a negative at times, it can be a negative because I'm relatively sized for just naturally growing on Instagram, especially. I've just hit 10,000 followers, so it's one of them where I've not really gone viral at all. I just post really cool shiny cardboard at the end of the day, and maybe bits of my experience and stuff like that. And people either follow me or they don't. It doesn't matter too much to me. Again, I took massive inspiration from the people who I used to look up to, who are old collectors in the hobby. You have like old school Pokemon, Dan Ketchumall. A lot of them people have built successful businesses without being the most famous people in the world. And people know them because they're honest, they're genuine, they love the hobby as much as the next person, but they've built it up naturally. It's not been like, I've got 1 million followers on this account and I'm pushing everyone to do this because I want to make money. It's more just, I build it up naturally. People will naturally come to me and, I'd say I'm pretty trustworthy, especially in the hobby as it is at the minute. People trust me for my prices, who I am, who I'm related to. I've got way too much to lose to, do what half the other whatnot kind of streamers do. My business is everything. It's my full-time job. It pays my bills. It, keeps me happy as well at the end of the day. It's not just here for money. I enjoy what I do compared to what I used to. It gives me the avenue to fly across the world and do what I want and not really worry too much. I get to buy some of the rarest and coolest cards in the hobby. So yeah, just kind of keep it honest and keep it growing. And again, it's not I think one of these sayings where like it's not a race to the finish and you
Yeah.
just want to get quick, like rich quick. It's one of them where I know this is a long-term goal for me. So I'm happy to take my time and grow it and get to a place where I'm happy and people stick with you rather than, you just grow super quick and then yeah, it could fade away quite quick when stuff kind of turns a little more quieter in the hobby.
Yeah, I think, and people are more inclined to turn against people when they see those platforms. They grow. Obviously, jealousy sets in for a lot of it. A lot of it is
Yeah.
jealousy, but I think true intentions in this hobby are perhaps rarer now. I don't think there's less people in the hobby that have true intentions. I just think there's more people in the hobby, so that percentage has got smaller.
Yeah.
So I think actually meeting people and obviously engaging people that are in the hobby for, you can be in the hobby and make money and be your business, but
Mm.
also, have a moral compass and kind of,
Yeah.
follow with your ethics and stuff. And as I said, a lot of the whatnot streamers don't do this. And I think that'll, long term, that'll bite them back. And I don't think they're ever probably in the hobby long enough
No.
for it to kind of probably matter for them, to be honest. But, you
Yeah.
know, guys like you and me that have been in the hobby a while and have adjusted from, just being a collector to having it as business.
Yeah.
So you said about obviously traveling. You've just come back from, was it Netherlands? You were in a card show in Netherlands?
Yeah, yeah. So that was a really cool event. So last year we went to an event called Monko World, which was run by our friend Pim. And we went to that one. He invited us out there, gave us booth space for free and whatnot. He's a really cool guy. And then this year he created a new event in Utrecht, which was TCG Paradise. And he grown significantly. He's took now the biggest venue in Utrecht. I think it's where the regionals are for Pokemon. But he invited us out again. He gave us booth space. He did, I don't know if you follow my socials, all them banners with the art academies on. He printed them for us for free. I think he said he spent around 6,000 euros, sorry, on the booth alone, and we paid for none of that. We just had to get ourselves there. Obviously, I was showcasing the art academy set, which was also very cool. I've not done that too often at big events, so that was really cool. But yeah, it was eye opening. It was a different kind of event. We still did very well, sales wise. It was like a standard LCS, just with some additional costs. A lot of people going off like card market, which is slightly difficult to work with because card market's higher on some things, lower on others. So it's one of them back and forths. But it was a fun event, tiring. So I'm still recovering now. And I've got LCS in 2 days.
Yeah.
But no, it's really good, and just a massive shout out to Pim. He probably won't watch this, but it was a crazy good event, and it felt like we were kind of me and Card House with Chloe were really wanted there, and he looked after us. So I said to him in a message, I was like, next time you do, well, let me know, and we'll be there again. So fingers crossed that happens sooner or later.
Yeah, from what I saw on the socials, it looked really fun. And I
Mm.
saw the banners you had looked amazing. That
Yeah,
I think the art academies is obviously, I didn't know about them until I met you. I didn't even know. I think I'd seen them, but I didn't know what
mm.
they were because they are such a rare item that was a niche, and I think you're probably one of the main reasons why people know about them now because you
Yeah,
were bringing them to shows. You were collecting obviously, and you were buying and selling them. So for
yeah.
those that don't know what the art academy cards are, do you want to explain for people?
Sure. So in 2015, Pokemon released the Pokemon Art Academy game on the DS. And it was just, I think the most similar competition was the Snap competition they held a few years back, where it was based on a game. But the Art Academy competition was, it was dress up Pikachu, and it was your favorite Pokemon. So you just had to draw that on the console. submitted to Pokemon, and then like usually they kind of chose their favorite artwork. They've done something very similar in the last few years, but now it's just they come out as promos. So there'll be hundreds of thousands of them mass produced, whereas the art academies, the artist who won received 100 copies of each of their card to kind of distribute or do what they like with. Funny enough, I only stumbled onto them because my partner Lottie collected Pikachus, and one day scouring eBay like I usually do, I seen one I'd never seen before from Japan. Ended up kind of buying it on a whim. I think at the time it was probably the most expensive single I'd ever bought. I think it was £115 or something. Bear in mind at this time, like you could buy a Crystal Charizard for like 50 quid. So it was a massive like jump in price. And it arrived and it was really cool. And I kind of, me and her fell down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to find all the winners. But yeah, we managed to find 4 or 5 of the winners, and then kind of hit blanks then trying to find them. So we took a bit of a hiatus, and then when I came back into the hobby as a business, that was like my goal. I'll be mentioned in a lot of podcasts, probably in the one we spoke about as well, where I was still chasing them. But just over the last 3 or 4 years, I managed to pick them up and now complete the set. But yeah, it's a super interesting kind of niche, and I still think that they're most unique competition cards Pokemon have ever done behind the snaps, just because of the rarity, how they were distributed, the Pokemon on there as well. I know all the Pikachus that are in English are the most expensive, rarest Pikachus in the hobby, full stop. And then if you take any of the other cards, they're the most expensive of that, like Pokemon. Like the Mew's the most expensive Mew card, the Kyogre is the most expensive Kyogre card, the Delphox most, like they're all up there. And yeah, I've done a lot of work promoting them, showcasing them. In December, I picked up from someone who had a lot and started selling them, and then I hit some record sales time after time on them. So I always knew where the prices were and the price points. But yeah, I'm kind of just named the Art Academy guy now, which I don't know if that's good or not, but here we are.
I think those art academies they're always one of those dreams, and I think most collectors will probably never own them, to be honest. I don't know how many of each card is actually out there in circulation. Like, I assume a lot of the artists probably still have got quite a lot of their copies.
Yeah.
Maybe they've seen where the hobby's changed the way it has now. Some of them might just be locked up in a closet somewhere, which is mad when you think about it. But I think what you've done with the business as well is probably, obviously, as you just said, as you became a business, meeting people, the connections you made, traveling around the world, going to these events in America as well, has helped you obtain that full set, which I think the average collector, like if I try to do it myself and I didn't know you, I probably would never be able to do it. Even if you've got enough money, I think it's one of those things that money isn't the issue. It's actually it's finding those cards.
Yeah, with them as well, I'm kind of happy to say that I've put collectors in touch with some of these cards that, again, they would never have thought they would have owned. And quite a few of them now I've completed sets for them or helped them get the rarest ones so they can work on the other ones down the line. So I feel kind of like privileged to say that I'm, me doing this and then knowing everyone who's kind of collecting them has really helped, especially that side of the hobby who are looking for them. Because like you said, they don't come up super often for like private sales or public sales. When they do, it's the same handful that are, the Tangrowth, the Chespin, the Melee Pikachu. They always come up because they're the ones that the artist sold the most of. But you go into the Pikachu Me and the Pikachu Ashley, the Kyogre, the Mew, they hardly ever come up, if any, if at all at this point. So to like put some of them ones into like collectors' hands are great. I know I forget his real name, but he's on E4, Kudor or something. I can't remember. I should know his real name. I gave him my Ashley I had before I upgraded to a BGS 9. that completed his Master English Pikachu set, which was crazy, and that was the last card he
Yeah,
needed. So it's stuff
that's
like that
mad.
where, um, yeah, people just know you for that, and obviously if you treat them well, they treat what you well, and it all comes around in a big circle. I think a lot of people in Pokemon, especially at the minute, just want everything for nothing and just kind of turn out and expect it all to be given to them. Even like the America trips and stuff, I've spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands at this point, flying out to events, meeting all the, the biggest names in the hobby, connecting with them, having something to talk to them about, which obviously the art academies are an easy talk because
Yeah.
they don't come up too often. I can't really go like, I've got this Moonbryon. Do you want to chat to me? Um, so the art academies have always been a conversation starter, and people, and I didn't realize this, but so many people know me for them cards, and they'll just say like, "Oh, you're the art academy guy," and I'll be like, "Yes," and it just connects people straight away, and it's like that easy like icebreaker. So yeah, they've done a lot for the business. They've done a lot for like me personally. And yeah, I've built some like crazy business collection connections through these. So in my eyes, they're kind of priceless at this point.
Yeah.
They've kind of recognized me in a place of the hobby where I wouldn't have got there, I don't think, without them. Obviously we spoke earlier a little bit, like I had the full gold star set. That was like one of my big things that I sold for the business to put towards the art academies. Um, and yeah, I think now looking forward, I think the only thing I'd like to buy that is a little bit more of a this person owns this is probably a snap card. I don't know if you've seen last year sometime, there was like a cool Instagram kind of story put up with certain people who own certain snap cards.
Yeah.
And it was like that kind of triggered me and was like, well, I'd like to like kind of be on a list sometime as someone who owns one of these because in my eyes the snaps are some of the rarest, if not the rarest cards in the hobby. So just to be put in with them, that name of collectors would be amazing. But I've come close twice for a snap and never quite got there. So maybe this year would be the one goal, just to own a snap of some sort.
Yeah, those snap cards are, yeah, they're lovely. I think the unique selling point and the brand in this hobby is extremely important.
Hmm.
You're obviously known for the art academies. You might be known for gold stars before, and that has obviously allowed you with the networking, the traveling. Obviously, you got to put the work in as well. And I think those connections are priceless. These cards have paid you back
Yeah,
tenfold probably,
yeah,
and the way your business can grow, the cards you can obtain now, they kind of gets to a point where there's not many cards you probably can't obtain through the connections that you've got, which
yeah,
is invaluable. But as you said, if you're a new collector coming to this game and you want to make a name for yourself, okay, the guy that owns 3 Moonbryons, like so many people own these cards.
yeah,
And I think that's the issue with collecting in general, is I think a lot of people either are in the hobby or entering the hobby. And I think there's this like almost confusion and days post COVID where people kind of aren't really sure what they want to collect. And I
mm,
think they get burnt out, they get quite frustrated because they can't get everything all at once. And
yeah,
there's that they don't want to work for it. They don't want to, we know that actually completing the goal is great, but it's that
yeah,
trying to complete it. It's the search for these cards. It's,
yeah,
chipping off things here and there slowly. That's the fun. When you've got the set, it's like, oh, okay, this is great. But
mm,
if you've got a set, maybe it's worth quite a bit. You're probably not looking at it every day. It's probably in storage or in a closet.
yeah,
And then you kind of go, oh, well, maybe I can sell it and get something else that I want,
yeah,
which is absolutely fine. I think a lot of people, we've all done it. Um, but I think that's one of the main things with collecting. I think setting goals and completing it, and then you can make the next goal. Um,
yeah,
it makes it so difficult. And I think, I mean, this new black and white set that's coming out is, it's going to have Master Balls, Pokeballs, Reverse Hollows. There's over all the Pokemon, so over 150 illustration rares. Then you got SIRs, full arts, the black and white hollows, whatever. I think master setting has become probably unobtainable now for the average collector. If anything, for all
Yeah.
collectors, like you look at, oh, is it Crown Zenith? That was huge set. That was
Yeah.
massive. Then you got 151, obviously, especially the Japanese. In terms of collecting, do you, now you've grown your business, is it that kind of stuff kind of out your minds now? Or do you still open some packs here and there and kind of keep an eye on what's happening?
Yeah, it's difficult because I think a lot of that stuff I did 5, 6, 10 years ago. So like I had all my fun ripping stuff when Black and White was out, X and Y was out. So I don't really find, and people will hear me say this, I don't find enjoyment in opening packs anymore, really. Just because I don't see the gain. Now I've become slightly more business minded. I'm like, just buy the cards you want. Why spend so much trying to rip it? And I've heard people who are like master set collectors, but they only rip packs to get it, and I'm like, it's just madness. You just,
Yeah.
if you've got more money than sense, and you're a you can afford to just rip 10,000 packs of a certain set, and hopefully you do whatever, that's fine. But the modern day collector, especially in the UK, hasn't got that funds. Now I think this is like one of the main things in the UK, and like kind of what you're referring to. Like the modern day collector wants everything now, and because there's so much coming out that everyone hypes about, they lose track of like what they're actually collecting. Or a new set might come out like prismatic or whatever, and that could be their biggest chase. And then the new rocket set comes out and they're like, oh, I'll leave that and I'll spend money on this now. And then all you're doing is kind of half collecting. You're not really going, I want this one thing, or I want to collect this set, or this kind of artwork, or this artist, and that's it. It's like I'll do a bit of this and I'll do a bit of that, and then it does get so overwhelming, especially with how big the sets are. Yeah, like that new Black and White set, like kind of, it sounds cool, and I've looked at the full arts, and it reminds me like of a kind of souped up black and white base, and it's kind of cool, but it's not one of them things where I'll buy it for the business, and that's probably about it. Like I don't need to rip anything. I don't. The last modern set I collected was 151, and I mastered that. And the only reason that is because I have a base set complete, I have a EX Fire Relief Green master set complete, and obviously 151 is the next
Yeah.
iteration of that.
Kanto.
So that's the only thing I collect. Like apart from that, a lot of it is business stuff, and I think the hard thing is as being a collector, I always want to collect stuff. Like at the minute, I've kind of took my foot off the gas a little bit on collect. But like I had a Mew Gold Star and a 10, which would have been one of my biggest chases I've bought. I bought it for £5,000 in February. I got such a good offer on it, and the business obviously owned it, that I had to sell it. Like it was just
Yeah.
too good of money to say no to it. And it happens quite often on stuff like that. Like I'll buy a big card and go, I could keep that, but if I get an offer that's, I'm making 100%, I can't say no at that point. It makes no sense. Um, and yeah, it kind of happens a little bit with the art academies at times as well, because now there's been a few more public sales on a few of the big ones. I could go, well, I've paid X amount. I should really sell this now. But also it's part of the brand, and then I'd have to then get something bigger, like the snaps, and like,
Yeah.
a single snap card is, your cheapest is like $40,000. So it's not exactly the cheapest thing to like swap into. But yeah, maybe I'm kind of just a little bit over collecting just because I've been in the game so long. And
Yeah.
probably the same as yourself, I think we've done a lot of it before. It's never going to end. And unless you have unlimited money and funds, and you either eat away at your business profit, or you eat away as your personal profit when you could spend it on something else, it just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah. I think knowing that there's always going to be more, there's always going to be another set that's cool. Like it doesn't stop in Pokemon. I think that half starting sets and just keep sort of plodding along through it is kind of the reality of the hobby now. We know,
Yeah.
like they've done split sets. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds exciting, and I'm gonna pick up some of the Japanese singles. I think English. I just think I don't think English. Well, I've already seen allocations already for stores that I've spoken to, because stores in the UK now get pre-allocated, and yeah,
Yep. I'm
yeah,
in that
I'm
boatload of
past.
people now.
So I think just knowing that there's always going to be something more is kind of reminding yourself of it doesn't matter, because it's going to be there at the
Yeah.
end of the day. It's always going to be there. You know, people spent loads of money in Evolving. They spent loads of money on Prismatic. When you see people opening hundreds and hundreds of packs to chase, it's yeah. I mean, you know, the only time I think it works is like Deep Pocket, Alex, where the money they're making back from that content and that revenue
Yeah.
is so much more than they'll ever spend on these cards, on these packs, on these boxes. So it makes sense. Obviously, at the moment, you know, Mike's doing trying to pull the SIR Pikachu, but
Yeah.
that, in a sense, is what he's been known for. So many people come up to him and be like, "Oh, you're the guy that opens the Surgeon Spark. So you pulled the Pikachu yet?" And they'll open packs with him. You know, I was there at Pokemania with him, and he had people coming up to him and be like, "Oh, can I open a pack with you?" So that's worked for him because that's become his brand, and it's not the
Yeah.
most expensive. You know, he's managed to source product, you know, for reasonable prices through different avenues. So it works that way. But when I see people opening thousands of packs of Prismatic to get the Umbreon, and they might not even pull it, or if they do, it's like damaged because English QC is awful. So it's
Yeah.
even worse. Yeah, I think the hobby's definitely evolved, and I think Whatnot streaming ripping ships doesn't help the scale that it is. A lot
Yeah.
of it is very. I think a lot of the big names in this hobby are there because they're selling you something and pushing an agenda or pushing something. You know, it'll always be hyping something up, and you see people spending £40 on one single Japanese pack of Gloria Team Rocket, which is it's just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
We know that we're not the kind of people that do it. Most of the
Yeah.
people we know probably aren't that audience, but that's the reality of it. And I think, you know, it is what it is with that. But collecting for me as well, I made a point of only collecting Mews and Pikachus, but then even now, I haven't picked any up for a little while, and I've got enough to grade myself if I wanted to. But
Yeah.
as you said, I'd rather have the money in the business. My personal funds, I'd rather have that, you know, invest that in my stocks and shares ISA, or, you know,
Yeah.
do stuff for my apartment. So it kind of gets to the point where you've outgrown it, I think, to be honest. I think you kind of outgrow the hobby as such, and it becomes something different entirely. So card shows, you obviously mentioned about doing US ones and UK ones. It's something we talked about 2 years ago, and we said, I think we all agreed that there was probably too many card shows in the UK, and they were pretty shit compared to the ones that you've attended to in the US. What has changed in the last 2 years, do you think? Or if nothing's changed?
I think there's some, from what shows I've been to, there's some UK shows now that are creeping on a US style.
Yeah.
And it's good to see. Obviously, went to CardCon. I think I've seen you guys there.
Yeah.
That felt like a US show. Obviously slightly different, but the one in Netherlands I went to was like a mini Collecticon, which it kind of opens your eyes. And I know LCS is the biggest show in the UK, and they're doing the LCS XL and the XL, next year.
Next year.
Maybe that's a step in the right direction again. I know Scotland is in June. That's going to be a huge show in the SEC. So, yeah, it's one of them where I think people have now grown to the stage where they're putting on bigger events, and you can see it. And even as a vendor now, I think I might have said I was stopping down smaller events when we last spoke.
Yeah.
I think now I'm picking just the big events that I'm doing, and is there for awareness of the brand, or just because I know I'm going to get enough people come up to me and make it worthwhile. I think the hard thing of a lot of shows is they're a lot down south, and being up north means a lot of travel, a lot of hotels, expenses, and then when you kind of combine it all to one, and people really should do this, whether they do or not, but if you combine all of that and then table costs, sponsorship costs, and whatever, are you actually making money from going to these shows, which, you know, I stopped a lot of the smaller ones because it made no sense. And that's when I pushed more onto eBay. Um, Now I feel like the bigger ones make sense. I know I've just signed up for Collectors Showcase in November, which is at the Olympia, which Jordan, the Scotland card show owner, is doing. So that should be good. I think he's already sold. Yeah, I think he's sold 2,000 tickets already. So numbers like that are fine. I still think there's a lot more now popped up, and there's a lot everywhere. And I think people kind of lose sight how small the UK is and how much money the buyers or the collectors have to spend. The US is so different because you can go up to, like, your average US buyer could just come and he might not even, you know, buy and sell Pokemon. He just likes that card, and he might spend like a couple of $1,000s.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, I feel like you're spending 50, 60, £100, and some people get tapped out. So it's hard to like even try and compare, and even long term, if it makes any sense. It would be cool if, I think I was talking to this at the weekend. It's just hard with Brexit now, but if one company went, "Oh, we're just going to do the whole of Europe and do the biggest show in every, like, you know, in Europe, so one in London, one in Paris, one in Utrecht, one in Milan," and that's like the most similar thing we'd ever get to a Collecticon kind of style, because the UK is too small for it. We'd have to just expand into foreign countries, but then, you know, it becomes techie with Brexit and taxes and imports and all that fun stuff, which no one wants to hear about. So yeah, it's changed for the better. I still think there's too many. I still sometimes debate whether they're worth it, and people are doing it just for the sake of doing them, or they actually are doing well off them. I know I did some polls on Instagram probably a few weeks ago now, where a lot of people got involved about like the state of the hobby and what collectors were doing, and if you're a business. And like, a lot of people do this alongside their full-time job or whatever. And I think things kind of get merged into one. They don't actually realize that, you know, you might buy a slab for £500 and you sell it for £650. That's fantastic. But you've sold it at a show which you've bought tables at, you've travelled to, you've at. Soon your margins become literally tiny. So maybe more people are being aware of that. Maybe more people just turn a blind eye and just see one number and go, "That's all I need to think about." But again, as a bigger business now, we've got to kind of weigh the overheads of every event we go to, especially with staff. Like at LCS, I'll have 4 staff working, obviously in junction with eBay, so I don't pay for the table costs, but I couldn't do that otherwise if I went for eBay, just because it made no sense. But yeah, a good improvement. I think we're still a little bit away from even coming close to the US, or even attracting US buyers over here. I don't think there's enough, obviously. When I compared shows last time, it was like we'd go to the US and we'd buy a load of singles, and then, you know, everything, you couldn't really lose on 90% of the stuff. I think it's a little different now. We went to Chicago last month, and bear in mind, I usually go there and buy 2,000 singles. I probably bought about 200, just because everything was so higher. Certain cards have been inflated over there, and then it's like impossible to buy. And
There's no margins on it.
Yeah, kind of similar over there, but not to the same, where everyone's a Whatnot streamer, or everyone is buying to resell, and
everyone's buying at 80%.
Yeah, which is, it becomes difficult, as then someone who's flying over there to buy and sell. I mean, we bought some really high-end slabs, and we paid 8% of market on some of them. And that's kind of using your expertise on, is this going to go up? Do I feel safe investing in this? And it's more of a, I think a little bit more of like, you have to be more knowledgeable now in the market, know the right people and the connections which I've now built up, and kind of put your faith in yourself, rather than, I'll just go there, I'll buy everything I see, and then it'll be fine when I come back home, because I don't think it is like that anymore. But yeah, slowly getting there, just not quite yet.
Yeah, I personally don't think it'll ever get to that level. I don't think we'll have if we do, it'll be one show a year. I just think the pockets that people have in the UK, they're very shallow. People,
Yeah.
as well in the people the US, a lot of people buy things on credit cards and on finance. In the UK, the average person is scared of, credit and loan, and
Yeah.
they in the US, there's probably a lot of people that are buying a card at 1,000 on a credit card on a 0% interest for 12 months, knowing that they could probably flip that card to make profit, pay off that credit card, and have some change. So then, rinse and repeat. Whereas over here, there's probably less doing that. I vended at Pokermania in Portsmouth on the weekend, and it was I had my dad helping me out, and he's never done anything like this before. So it was very eye-opening for him. But it was, kind of to ensure that I could go around and kind of see what other people were doing. And I didn't take too much with me. I had one table. The table cost was £35. I lived down the road. So for me, there was 0% chance of basically being in a deficit there. And one of the things I found quite interesting was I went around the tables, looked at their prices before pricing what I was up. Then I just undercut them. And I sold 95% of my stuff. I think I had 2 blisters left, 5 pages of one binder and 6 on the other. And they were both full binders. I had loads of sealed. And other vendors, I was looking at the same sealed stuff that I had, and they still had it at the end of the day. They were having to pack loads away. I had barely anything to pack. I literally took one box, my rucksack, and then just went. Yeah. And I think, looking at their pricing, they were charging 10-20% above eBay solds. So the problem in the UK I see with a lot of these card shows is, and most vendors do this, is probably because those margins aren't as big, as you said. Maybe they've started factoring the costs of tables, travel, hotel, food, because it does add up.
Yeah.
Like, it massively eats into your profit. And then now they've gone, well, for this to be viable, instead of just not coming to the show, we're going to price 20% higher than market. So even if you haggle with them, which most of them I tried haggling with and they weren't interested, even if you haggle, you're still paying 10% above market. And I just thought, and it's the same, most of them had the same shit, to be honest. Like, it was the same modern stuff, Sword and Shield, Scarlet Violet alts, graded stuff. And throughout the day, I just went back and they just had the same stuff. And they've got tables, they got boxes underneath the tables ready to load new product, but they're not selling any of it. And a couple of the vendors I spoke to said that they didn't think it was a great show. And I thought, I guess it's all going to be down to perspective, right? You might have a great show, someone else might not. But why are you having a bad show? Because there was Comic-Con down the road the same weekend. It was Bank Holiday weekend. By I think 2:00, they were just letting people into the event. So there was like 2,500-3,000 people at this event throughout the day. Yeah. There was only 50 vendors. You should be clearing up there, surely.
Yeah, you should be doing well with that kind of percentages. I feel like a lot of the vendors who do every shows though just kind of take advantage of the new people, and it's kind of a rinse and repeat. Yeah. And it becomes difficult because I've heard it before time and time again where someone's come over to even my booth and gone, oh, I've just bought this and it was like £5 extra, or is this or is that, and I'm like, it gets frustrating. Like, I understand at times though that sometimes you can't, like a binder for example. Before I came onto the podcast, I was refilling binders from the weekend, and there'll be stuff that sits in there for a while, and I know it's overpriced. But the only thing with me is if someone goes, hey, like, I want this card, eBay solds of this, what can you do? And I'll literally be honest and go, whatever eBay low list is, you can have it for, and I'm happy with that, because I would have only sold it on eBay anyway at low list. So it makes no difference to me. And it's happened a few times at various shows where people have questioned the price and I've gone, I'll be fair, whatever eBay low list is, that's what I can do. And it's also worked the other way sometimes when people have gone, oh, can you do like £5-10 off this £70 card? And I'll look at low list and go, I'm actually under market by 10% here. And I'll go, well, I'm not going to raise my price, but I'm not going to give you a discount now. Yeah. So it works. It works in both ways. But again, if you're not willing to negotiate at all, or even, if someone shows you a low list and they can just order right now, I understand you're in person, but at the same time, that doesn't deserve a 10-20% premium.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I just don't see the point in it. But I think that's one of them things that binders, especially. I sell a lot of singles through binders. They're a nightmare. I hate them now. I'm at the point where I'm
Yeah.
like, I just want to stop doing binders and go to a
It's
show.
hard to
Like you just
price.
said, yeah, I want to go to a show with 2 cases with £150,000 of just slabs and high end like singles, and go, this is what I've got. Buy stuff or don't buy stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because the binders are just so time consuming, and it's even that now. It's like, should I be spending all day repricing binders and filling gaps, or should I be buying huge collections and huge single cards where realistically I make more money on? But yeah, I think people just get into a routine, I guess, when they do a show every weekend where they're like, well, eventually it'll sell. And if I stay firm on my prices, I'm making X amount. But then people then talk about you, and you're like, well, do you want to have that negative appearance? And then, eventually people just don't come to your booth. So yeah, it's hard. I think being a UK vendor is a lot different than the US. In the US, you can go to most people and be like, I'm going to take X amount. Can you do it at 85, sometimes 80%? A lot more difficult now. And a lot of times they'll say, yeah. I had a few people in the US where I went to them and was like, I want to pay you 85%. And bear in mind, their stickers were high. And they were like, now we're going to do 92. I was like, right. I was like, so I was forced to then go back through and like actually price stuff, which I never usually do. So I knew I wasn't overpaying on stuff compared to the UK market. And then other people are just so easy to work with, where you can be like, what can you do? It's 80% done. Here's your cash. Move on to the next person. I also feel like there's a lot of now more competition about people going to the US. There's a lot more UK guys going now.
Yeah,
and it's like, eventually it's going to get to the point where everyone just buys the cheap stuff and brings it back over here. Like, I knew 151 was quite cheap and people were just loading up on it. But I'm like, there's only so much 151 that can go around.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't got like, the capital to just kind of sit on it and wait and let it slowly sell, you're just going to start fire selling it, and it's going to bring the whole market down. And yeah, it's one of them. It's a difficult balance. But I think a lot of people going to the US is the same thing. Do they realize the costs and the overheads and what they've put into the event? Obviously, I fly there, and I usually fly first class, upper class. I eat nice food. I do all the things I want to do. But in my eyes, it's also a business expense, which means my taxes are slightly lower at the end of the year. I'm also experiencing and enjoying my life, which I think people sometimes overlook. I'm not always there for business. I'll go to a nice sushi place and spend stupid money on some food, but that's what I enjoy, so that's what I'm going to do. It's the same with going anywhere. Like, you can go whatever casino and spend money or whatever, but at this point I know it's my business and everything, but also got to enjoy the time doing the things that you wouldn't have done anyway. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think maybe that'll come to an end, or maybe it'll just keep happening. The more shows that happen every weekend, more and more new people get into the hobby, more and more people get took advantage of for the first few events. It's one of them. It's not like it was 10 years ago where everyone wanted to help everyone and whatever. It's a lot of it's just monetary gain for a lot of these people, but can't
it's
change that.
Just money a lot, I think. Quite a few people came up to me and I asked them if it was their, what they collect and stuff. And I had so many people were like, "Oh, I joined the hobby a month ago, or this is my first card show." And I had a couple come over and they weren't sure what they wanted to collect. And I said, because one of my binders was just 50p. Every card was 50p, and it was so I don't have to individually price it, but it's just like Diamond and Pearl, EX era, XY, hollows, uncommons, rares, but of random Pokemon. So if they go, right, I really like Caterpie, they can go for the binder and pick up all the Caterpies they like. Yeah. And I mean, it's low effort for me because I don't have to price everything in that binder. I just put it out there. I keep refilling it with essentially most of it is bulk, but people are picking up Pokemon. They go, "Oh, I like this Pokemon. I like that Pokemon." I'm the same, and I think I saw it. I think it was at EUIC, I can't remember what the store was, but they had boxes basically, and it was every single Pokemon A to Z. I think they're known for it. And I
Okay.
mean, yeah, most of the cards are damaged, but every card's like I think 50p or £1, and
Hmm.
people are picking up stacks. So instead of
Yeah.
spending 50 quid on one card, they're buying 50 cards. And I mean, the storage obviously is one thing and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
and I was just saying, look, pick a Pokemon you like or pick a couple of ones and then just go from there. I think don't spend too much too early. Don't get into it too much, because I think once you got in deep, you're chasing yourself and
Yeah.
you end up, 6 months down the line, they're on Whatnot. 3 months down the line after that, they're streaming on Whatnot, because
Hmm.
apparently anyone that buys on Whatnot 3 months later just becomes a seller, because they think it's easy. It's free money, and that's one of the
Yeah.
big things with the hobby is Whatnot is absolute shit. I'm sorry if anybody is watching this and you stream on Whatnot. There are a couple of great Whatnot streamers that generally are like doing things properly, and it's actually good. But for the most of it, 99% of it is just shit. And I think so many people that I talk to that stream have been like, oh yeah, it's so many of the buyers now I'm competing with because they're streaming as well,
Hmm.
and it's just it's just ridiculous. The hobby is chaotic with that.
Hmm.
I mean,
But
myself and you are very different in terms of I'm a bit more vocal about. I know me and you agree on a lot of the same things, but
yeah.
I'm a little bit more vocal on it, and it bites me in the arse sometimes. But you'd only live once, and I think these things need to be talked about sometimes. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think eBay Live is a really great step in the direction, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are hoping. So I think just for the fact that people are a little bit bored of the narrative that we've got recently is
Hmm.
why I think eBay Live will actually absolutely smash it out of the park.
Yeah. I feel so as well. I feel eBay Live. There's no gimmicks. There's no nothing. You're buying, packs at market price. Let's not get it wrong, but it's going to be market price, and you'll be buying singles at eBay low list because we're on eBay. I think
Yeah,
that's the big difference where there's loads of like rules and regulations already been set from the contracts I've read and seen and talked to obviously the eBay staff about, and there's not supposed to be gimmicks. It's a buy and sell platform, and it's supposed to be, do you want this card? Yes, you're paying market price. Enjoy it. I think a lot of it is, there's sudden deaths and everyone's panicking and everyone hasn't got time and not everyone's got price knowledge like we do. So they see a card and, if people are bidding it up, they're like, oh, this must be expensive. Turns out they get like a card for 100% over market. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to be part of that original group of sellers, and I'm going to build it and push it. And I think we're going to be doing 3 streams a week. Or my streamer is, and then any like big releases. But it's the same thing really. Like we don't get much stock in for new releases, so it's going to be, as we get from Asmodee and what goes out, and obviously all the other business elements about keeping some stuff back and whatever. But it should be fun. I say we're going to be majority pack streams, like just ripping ships. A lot of singles because I think I'm going to take all my singles from my binders and just that's my stock and just
Yeah.
go through it because, like I was saying, the binders are a lot of work and time. And at this point, is it worth me pricing every couple of days for the next show or whatever? And the binders sit there for sometimes a month at a time where I'm not earning anything. So um, a lot of singles. Obviously, I'm kind of well known for the plush as well, so we might throw in a plush stream and see how it goes. That might be fun. And we will be doing like some vintage breaks and box breaks and something a bit more enjoyable where not everyone does it every day. So it should be good change. I know what my hot take is now as well. When we get to that, that's just coming to my head.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it overall, to be honest. So it should
I
be
think
good.
so. With it, obviously, you said you've hired a streamer. Are you going to be streaming
Yeah.
yourself on there, or is it just going to be your streamer?
No, so I think I've I think I don't want to stream because I don't want to put I don't want to be the face. Obviously, there's
Okay.
people who are super I don't know, like they're actually they fit a streamer role. I'm not that guy.
That's fair
I
enough.
want to just I can get miserable, I can get annoyed, and it shows on camera too much. And at
Yeah.
that part, I don't need to do it. So I've agreed with a streamer. She's streamed before. I've known her for years. I fully trust her, and she is very good with people. You know,
That's
whereas
fair.
I'm okay with people, but
Yeah,
I'm not the
it's hard.
yeah, I'm not the community guy that you know, I probably should be, but I'm just not. I like doing my own thing, and
That's fair
you
enough.
know, it is what it is. But yeah, she's gonna stream for me, and you know, it should be fun, and she should. I've basically gave her free reign. I'm like, this is your kind of baby. Grow it
Okay.
and see where we come. And the more you do on it, and the better you do, the better you'll get rewarded. The less I have to do, the better for me as well. So it takes out a lot of like bits and bobs of stuff I'm doing to free up time. Basically, now I can spend more time sourcing, um, use my capital more wiser, buy higher end slabs, and kind of use that as well because that's something I enjoy doing now. You know, that 4-figure, 5-figure slab is, in my eyes, more fun to own and sell and get it in the hands of the right collectors rather than
Yeah.
100 singles now. But yeah, it should be a completely different kind of vibe than whatnot. So hopefully people come in, say hello, um, especially on the MTM stream because we'll be doing some like crazy stuff that weekend. So yeah, it should be amazing to get involved in.
So, well, we're gonna ask the hot take since you already know your hot take. What is your hot take?
Um, so I thought this for a while, but now you just said it. I think Whatnot is the worst thing that's ever come to the UK in terms of the collectible scene. And I think that because at first when it came, it was all about getting cards into people's hands quicker.
Yeah.
Now it's just anyone who's a Whatnot streamer to a degree thinks they're someone in the scene or someone in the hobby without really earning their stripes. And when
Yeah.
I say stripes, I don't mean like, oh, you have to be in the hobby for 15 years like we have been or whatever. But it's more just doing things the right way and not just trying to jump to the top and get a little bit too like big headed about it. Um, yeah, I used to buy off Whatnot US before it came to the UK, and it was a great platform for singles, for some slabs, for stuff we couldn't really get here. And I can't remember the last time I ever looked at Whatnot, and I think it must have been like 2 years since I've bought something
Yeah.
because I don't see the point. The people buying on there, as much as they might have more money than sense, it doesn't do anything great for the hobby itself. Like, go and buy off a small eBay shop instead, who are trying to grow and put time in
Yeah.
and make a shop and that, or you know, spend some time helping your friends. You know, you got a friend who's trying to sell some bits, like buy off them. Whatnot is just fueling people's egos at this point. It's not yeah, it's not it's not what we kind of want for the hobby, to be honest.
No, I agree. I think it is the worst thing that's ever happened to this hobby, honestly. I think, as you said, there's so many people on there that think they're something because they stream on Whatnot. And as we know, the entry to stream on Whatnot is non existent. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I used to stream on Whatnot. I did it for about 6 months, I think. Back then, it was like, it was okay. Like, I
Mm.
enjoyed it because I enjoyed talking to people and I enjoyed the streams. And, you know, I was selling booster packs, Silver Tempest at £4. I wasn't making a huge amount of profit on it, but I wanted to be part of something I at the time thought that was, going to be good for the hobby. And we've realized over these last couple of years, and one of the things I just don't understand is the amount of scammers on there that get like temporary banned, but because they're a high earner, they jump back on it. And it's not
Yeah.
even just the scamming. I mean, the scamming is bad in itself, but some of the stuff they've done and said on stream is just, I'm not going to mention the ins and outs because I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube, but some of the stuff they do is straight up illegal.
Yeah.
And any other, if that was as a Whatnot streamer, you're representing this company. If I was working for a company and I was doing the things they were doing, I wouldn't have a job. So
Yeah.
I don't understand how these whatnot streamers can get away with it. They get temp banned for a week or two, hoping that, you know, it dies over and people forget about it, but they don't. And, you know,
Mm.
there are people in the UK that have straight up scammed people. People know who they are.
Yeah.
They're still streaming on there, and everybody in this community is friends with them. They buddy up with them, and it's almost like you can network and have a circle of people that aren't a circle of people that doing shitty things.
Yeah.
That I don't want to be associated with people that I know are going to scam people and have that malicious intent in the hobby. So
Mm.
if yeah, it's hopefully eBay Live sorts that.
Yeah.
You know, and fuck whatnot, honestly.
Beat that
Anything else
out.
you wanted? Anything you wanted to end on before we go?
Not really. No, not in particular. I think just more just as the end of, well, is it the end of Scarlet and Violet coming soon, and the end of, I'd say, the trio of hype, which was like Surgeon, Journey Together, Destined Rivals. As that's coming to an end now, it'll be interesting to see how many maybe people stay in the hobby, or how many people try and sell out and be like,
Yeah,
"Can I have my fun? It's now time to leave." Maybe, I don't want to throw the word like the scalpers are the problem or anything like this, because at the end of the day, I don't think they are. I feel like the hobbies itself is fueled by people need product to rip, whether it be I need to be able to rip for master sets, or I need it for whatnot fodder, or I need it for my business. Um, but I feel like everyone's like forgets about Scarlet and Violet base, and that was what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
yeah,
It's like the hobby will go back to normal. We've had it multiple times. You just gotta kind of ride the wave, or go, I'm taking a hiatus until I feel like the hobby is in a better place again. And it will be. It does these circles all the time. You know, we
yep,
had the COVID
always.
boom. You know, we had a lot of stuff. I remember even like the Pokemon Go boom back then, that was harder then to get a bit of product. So it comes, it goes, and stuff. Booster boxes will be back down to £105 in the next 2 years. It's just how it is. But in the meantime, just buy smart. Don't get kind of sucked into the hype of every new set's the best new thing. Kind of, I would say at points, maybe take the time to work out what you want to collect in the hobby and what goals are worth attaining. Pokemon itself is probably one of the weirdest hobbies, where being a collector doesn't mean owning the hardest, the most expensive items to find, where in any other hobby it is most of the time. You know, you're a comic book collector, you want that number one Spider-Man or number one Superman or whatever. You know, you're a coin collector, you want the most expensive coins that are certain mints or whatever. In Pokemon, sometimes it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, what can we buy that everybody else wants, instead
Yeah,
of what can I buy that nobody else is currently buying? Because that's probably where the best value for money is. But we'll see. Again, it's the hobby always changes. It changed from 2 years ago. It'll probably change in 2 years again.
yeah.
You know, but it is what it is. But just kind of be smart with what you're buying, why you're collecting, and yeah, kind of make some goals for yourself and go from there, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I think that's great advice. And check out Sam's socials. It'll be in the link in the description below. If you're any upcoming card shows, come and say hi to him.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, ending on that way, I think is great. The hobby always heals. It always goes through those
Mm.
cycles, as you said. So awesome. Thank you, everyone, and see you later.
Thank you very much.